In Lesson 50, we look at quadratic equations and completing the square. In our first example, what we need to do first is get the x terms on one side of the equation. So I'll have x squared plus 6x, and that's going to be equal to a positive 4 because I moved that to the other side of the equal sign. And then what I need to do is take half of 6, which is 3, and I would square that to get 9. And I take that 9 and also add it to the other side. And then I can write this as x plus 3 squared equals 13. And then to get rid of the square, I would take the square root of both sides. So I'd have x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 13. Then our last step is just to subtract the 3 on both sides. So x equals a negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 13. And then that's our answer, because that square root of 13 is an irrational number. So we're just going to leave it like that, and that is the most accurate way to write that. In example 2, we're going to use that same method of completing the square to solve for x. But you can see that this is not in the right order. I need to switch that, so I have my x squared first. So I'll have x squared and then plus 2x. And I need my x terms on one side and my constant on the other, so I'm going to move the 5 to the other side of the equal sign. And then I'm going to take half of 2 and square that. So half of 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. So I added 1 to this side, so I'll add 1 to the other side. And that way we still keep our equation balanced. Okay, and then I can write this now as x plus 1 squared, and that will equal 6. Then I'll square root both sides of the equal sign, and I'll have x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 6, and then I would subtract 1, so x equals a negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 6, and we'll just leave our answer like that, because that's the most accurate way. In example 3, I'll need to move the 5x on the same side that my x squared is on, so I'll have x squared minus 5x equals a negative 5. Then I'll take half of 5, which is just 5 over 2 is the easiest way to use that since it doesn't divide evenly by 2. And I would square that, so that's going to be plus a 25 over 4. So again, I took half of 5, which is 5 over 2, and then squared it, and that's how I got the 25 over 4. So I also need to add that to the other side, so plus 25 over 4. Now, on the left side, I can write that as x minus, because that's negative, 5 over 2 squared, and that's going to equal, now on this side I need a common denominator, which would be 4. So if I write this with a 4 on the bottom, I have to multiply the top by 4, which would be a negative 20. And when I add those together, I'll get 5 over 4. Then I'll take the square root of both sides to get rid of that square. So I'll have x minus 5 over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. Now the reason I'm able to take the square root of the bottom, not the top, is because 4 has a perfect square root, or is a perfect square. So the square root of that is 2, but the 5 doesn't, so I'll just need to leave it under the square root symbol. Then my last step here, I need to add the 5 over 2 to the other side, so it won't be next to my x, and my x will be by itself. So x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. And that would be our final answer. And they already had common denominators, so that's why I was able to just write the 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 all over 2.